You're listening to Moments of Clarity with Tiffany Werner. We welcome your input at 866-826-1340. Tiffany will be right back after this.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Hi, this is Tiffany Werner, your host of Moments of Clarity. Living with a mental health disorder is not easy. If you or someone you know are struggling with this, please know it's so important to seek treatment, and I'm here to help. Please visit the website at momentsofclaritywithtiffany.com to view blog posts and resources on this site to help educate and inspire you to take action, because there's no shame in seeking help for mental health. While you're there, please take a few seconds to sign up for my email list. You'll get some extremely valuable educational and entertaining content that can be sent right to your inbox each week. Plus, you'll also get instant and free access to my guide on managing your anxiety. You can also follow me on Twitter at MOC with Tiffany and at Facebook at Tiffany Werner. And once again, the website is momentsofclaritywithtiffany.com. Thank you so much for your support and for listening to your show, because change can only come when we stand together as one.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
We are back to Moments of Clarity with Tiffany Werner. To join in the discussion, call 866-826-1340. Now, here's Tiffany Werner.
Hi, and we're back, and thanks for waiting. And if you're just tuning in, this is Moments of Clarity. My name's Tiffany Werner. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I am your host. And today my guest is phenomenal. He's a podcast speaker, a life coach. He is a motivational speaker, and he works with young kids. His life journey led him to where he is at today. And his podcast, The Inner Warrior, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. You can find on iTunes and Spotify. But he's talking about depersonalization at age 11, finding that he was not only feeling, I would say, abused at his school, his boarding school, but came in even with weapons to try to stand up for himself. And a lot of self-shaming to the point where led to drug abuse, substance abuse, and we'll get to that. But I want to welcome back to Moments of Clarity, Henry Johnstone.
Hello, it's nice to be back.
It's so nice that you're still here. Like, I always get nervous when it's through Skype, but you know, I like having our friends across the pond on our show.
Yeah, there's always that kind of slight anxiety of like, oh God, what if the internet just pops out? But...
Yeah, and then I'm here like trying to like script something for the next 30 minutes. Anyway, let's just talk about my day. No, just kidding. Okay, so we left off. The nurse, you got what we call here is Baker acted, and you were an inpatient, and she should be put in jail just for saying what she said to you, like that you're disgraceful. So
it's not okay. It's not okay.
It's not. So where did you go from there?
Okay, so I stayed in there for a while. They initially thought I had schizophrenia, but that kind of got downgraded to bipolar affective disorder, as I believe it's called now. ADHD, OCD with borderline personality disorder, and the depersonalization. And I had to really push for that. I had to really push to say, actually, no, like, this is what happens to me. And even now, Tiffany, I've got to be really careful when I talk about it, because it's still something that can be triggered, like, really quickly. You know, so it's still very much a constant in my life. And when I was getting diagnosed, I really had to stick my oar in and go, this isn't okay. Like, tell me what this means. And so right. I stayed in that mental health ward. And, you know, it was kind of nice to spend time around peers who were also suffering, but it did have a detriment to my education, because the education system that they had in the ward wasn't up to par. We were very much left to our own devices. And ask any teenager if they want to do work, they're more than likely going to say no. So that's what we did.
And give an option. And it sounds like they tagged you with just like almost every possible diagnosis, because they probably couldn't figure out exactly what it was. Because to diagnose with everything you just said is just a little bit like it's almost just covering any track, but they didn't. It doesn't sound like, from what you described to me personally, and I do diagnosing, that they exactly knew what they were saying at the time. But that's my opinion.
It was a lot like it's like they had loads of sticky notes, yeah? And they were like,
it could be this, it could be that, it could be...
Like, here you are. And do you know what's interesting about having that? Like, when you're a kid, like, I took that on as fact. Like, that defined me. Because I was searching for an identity at that time, as all young guys do.
Right, and you're stuck with all these labels.
Yeah.
And even the personality disorders and things like that, of that nature, shouldn't even be diagnosed until at least age 18. So
yeah. And I didn't know what any of them meant. All I heard was personality disorder. I was like, what does that even mean?
It means you're disorderly funny.
Yeah, so I experienced that, and I went back a little bit in my education years, and then I went back into mainstream schools. And what's interesting, at that time in my life, as I sort of alluded to before, I was searching for an identity. I was a young man, and I was brought up around traditional masculine roles. So I thought, right, I'm either the aggressor, the protector, the provider. But I wasn't any of those things. I wasn't particularly good at sport. I wasn't very clever. And I was no good with women. So already in that kind of social structure of schools, I had nowhere to go, nowhere to be recognized. But when drugs came along, they were their own clique. And I was like, well, I'm pretty good at taking drugs. I really like drugs. So I've
never heard anyone say that they're bad at taking them.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I can excel in this. Just watch me. So that's what I did. But unfortunately, the phenomena of addiction, which is, as I understand it, an addict responds differently, don't they? And I did, and I went with, and the compelling reason was, if I don't take them, then I'm going to feel empty. So I did, and I stole with ease, and I stole thousands of pounds off my parents, and it just got worse and worse. And then there was violence between, I used to beat up my parents, bless their souls, and this monster was just coming up, and it all came down to feeling so guilty about what I was doing, feeling so conflicted, feeling completely powerless over my using.
And over your emotions, it sounds like.
Yeah. I'm so shut down that it all just came out in anger. And when the anger wasn't directed out, it was directed inward. And that's when I discovered, the power of self-harm. And this, I know that we've got half an hour left, but there is so much. Like I went to see a psychiatrist once, and he said, right, we're going to sit you down for a 40-minute session, find out about your history. It needed 4 sessions. So I'm gonna section, push this down a little bit. But that kind of cycle of using it, getting really bad, stealing, I kind of hit a very kind of rock bottom, and then I'd be sober for a little bit. But then and alcohol as well was very much a part of my story. But this cycle of stealing, feeling awful about myself, feeling really negative things about myself, this emergent mental health state of mind that was coming through just continued. And it was just this cycle. And it all really came to a head after I left my first time at university. And that, even to this day, it is one of the darkest moments. Actually, no, God, I skipped out on this bit when I was homeless. Fancy that. So back when I was 18, 17, my parents kicked me out of the house, and I just took myself to the streets, and I just slept on the streets.
How old were you at that time?
17.
You just say that.
And that was my safe place. For the first time I felt safe, because I was literally wallowing in all my self-hatred. That was where I could let it all come in, and I could feel sorry for myself, but I could actively punish myself. And I find self-destruction incredibly compelling. It's definitely part of my makeup, and that's something that I'm very aware of now, and I have to monitor. But being homeless, self-harming, stealing, I used to just go. My parents lived in quite a big house, and they had this really big door. So I just used to kick that door through. And I'm a big guy, so I can kick doors through. And there was this one time where they replaced the door, and I was out, and it was freezing. And I just wanted to be near my mum, that real innocent just wanted to have that connection. So there was this tiny window, and I was so thin that I smashed this window and I crawled through, and I slept in the basement because it was warm, and I knew that the basement was directly sort of 2 floors down from my mum's bedroom, so I could be there with her. And then I just skulked out, early in the morning, so they wouldn't even know that I'd been there. So it was just really, really sad.
Yeah.
Really sad.
Like, you just wanted to be near your mom, and you were confused. And apparently, it just sounds like the help that was there wasn't the right kind of help, and you were just a kid.
Yeah, and to be fair to my parents, I went through a lot of work with my mum and dad. They were just using the tools that they had available to them at the time. Had I walked through the door and accepted their help, they would have helped me, but I absolutely would not allow them to do that. I would not allow myself to face what I had done. And I never really did until my story kind of progressed into recovery. So after that, I kind of came back a little bit, but I was just in and out. I was in and out. I didn't really commit to anything. I just kind of got by. I lied so much. My whole life was just.
Why do you think that was? Why do you feel like you lied?
Oh man, because I couldn't let anyone see me. Could not let anyone see the real me, that I was actually desperately upset and desperately lonely. So I had to lie. I had to lie about how I felt, where I was going, what I was doing day to day. I told massive whoppers to all my friends to kind of position myself as this bad dude, that I had loads of fights, that someone had tried to stab me. And people did try and stab me from time to time, but I created this fallacy of who I was to keep people away from me, to keep them inquiring into the soft, gentle, loving kid who I was.
If you see you too, imagine I can imagine you with weapons and fighting and all this stuff, and you got this baby face, and I couldn't imagine just by looking at you that you would have gone through all this. You know what I mean? It's so weird how we say that, mental health is not discriminatory to anybody. You can't see somebody that's struggling. You can't just see somebody and say that person has this or that or whatever, because it's across the board on anyone. You never know.
Yeah. Absolutely. You literally cannot, and it's almost inappropriate for someone to assume that they know how someone's feeling based purely on what they view from the outside. Someone may well be wearing a really nice suit, and look really well kept, but you just don't know what's going on inside. You don't know what their self-talk is. You don't know what their situation is. And my God, they're just trying to get by,
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. They are. So then what?
So then what happened? So I went through all this. My self-harm was still really up high. I went to university. I didn't work one bit. I just continued to take drugs. They gave me a student grant, so I was like, money! They're giving me money! What do I do with money? Drugs! Let's take all the drugs, because that worked in the past,
Let's all use our student loans for partying. I'm sure there's a lot more students out there that are guilty of doing that too. Just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just something for addicts, but that's what I did. I didn't pay any rent. I found a girlfriend at the time, which is just incredible. How did I even find a wonderful woman? I think she possibly wanted to rescue me, and
it's in the females.
Yeah,
it's
right.
It was women want to do all the time, I think.
And she was quite broken in a way herself, so I think we really connected on that kind of subconsciously, and we were trying to rescue and fix each other. When that relationship went through, that was the moment that I spoke about before. That's when the real feralness came out, where I would just sleep. I drink vodka all day. I couldn't afford any drugs. I'd drink vodka all day. I would just lie in my own urine, my own feces. I would be sick on myself and it wouldn't matter. I'd just lie in it. That was the level of it. It's just mess everywhere, just complete disregard or self-care for myself, and that's when the self